Crypto first went massively parabolic in 2013, then again in 2017, and then again in 2021. Are you noticing a pattern? It is now 2025. Will that same pattern hold? We'll take a look at Bitcoin, we'll look at ETH and some specific altcoins to see what they're doing, and we'll look at other markets, more importantly, talk about money flows into risky assets in general, like crypto, to see if that same pattern that has happened every 4 years might also hold this year. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. If you, like me, came into crypto because you realize there is massive potential here for life-changing gains, but you realize that taking the longer approach is more likely to lead you to that, well, you're in the right place at the right time. And today we're going to do some deeper analysis, looking at the price. We're going to look at some that have been massively running up. It's going to be a lot of fun. Now, do know I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul invests in many markets. None of this will be taken as financial advice. So if you haven't already, do make it rain on that like button. Strap in for this show, and let's get rolling. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Good to be here as always.
Yes. So one of the ones we've been tracking massively has been running away like a freight train the last couple of days. So we'll take a look at that. Overall, Paul, what are you tracking? What has been going crazy in your world?
Yeah, just generally speaking, risk on kind of everywhere, pretty much as we've discussed. Looking at the equity markets, they've moved higher. Short-term interest rates are moving lower in the US as per the September rate cut potential. Precious metals have kind of held in and going sideways for now, but I think they're ready for a leg up. And interestingly, the spread between Bitcoin and ETH has been continuing to move in the direction of ETH, which has happened by a correction in Bitcoin and ETH staying steady. But I like the look of a lot of the charts I like the look of the charts of the altcoins that are just sort of hanging in there. And it feels like we could be getting ready for something quite interesting in this last sort of, well, we're not in the last quarter yet, but we're not far from the last quarter. And after the August markets have subsided and volume comes back in, I think it could be a really interesting end to the year. But the charts are looking ready to break out. There's a few things here and there that are just sort of holding in, and if they do, we should have quite some interesting moves here. So I think patience probably will be rewarded. It has been difficult, but the underlying markets have been good. The macro scene has been good.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think this 4-year cycle is on track to play out. Now, I would say overall it feels a little bit delayed, but also a lot of the interest rate cuts that have usually come every 4 years as well have also been delayed. So I think as interest rates further come down, that's going to cause some money flows into riskier assets like crypto. And I think bull market is fully on. Like, I think we're in a greater bull market, but most of the impact has gone mostly to Bitcoin. And some of the ISO coins like XRP and Hedera and a few others, but I think the majority of run is still ahead of us.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a bull run in risk on assets, and there's been a bull run in Bitcoin. It's just that there hasn't been a bull run in altcoins, and it is a bull market pretty much. It just doesn't feel like it. It just depends where you are. I mean, it's like the property market. Some places are up, huge percentages over the last 10 years, and some aren't. It's you kind of pay your money, you take your choice. There's huge risk in the altcoins, and there's huge potential reward, and it just depends where you are. But the underlying market has been very good. It just depends where you've deployed your capital, and the final phase should be a tide rising tide lifting almost all boats, and hopefully, I would say in this last phase, if whatever you're looking at doesn't rise, it might be the last throw of the dice for it potentially. Because if that doesn't make it move, unless there's some innovation that everyone's missed, maybe that could be the end. But we're a few steps ahead of that yet, so we've got to wait for that to come. But I think the point to make is that there has been a bull market, and Bitcoin has gone up a lot over the last few years, and certain altcoins have as well. It's just, it depends where you've bought them and what your outlook is, and all that sort of stuff, and which ones. But hopefully we'll get a full synchronization of all of them higher, and it'll be an interesting final phase. But we shall see. We shall see.
Yeah, we got rolling a little bit early today because we're on a shorter timeline. Paul has a commitment a little bit later today, so we wanted to get to everything. Paul, why don't you take us through anything you're looking at on other charts before we dive into Bitcoin and ETH?
Yeah, sure. So start off with the equity markets. As always, we had the break higher in the Dow Jones. That's through the high there, heading upward trend. Not much more to say, really. Transportation index hasn't broken into a new all-time high, but I think it will eventually. NASDAQ having a consolidation, but the trend is still up. If this turns into some form of top, we'll see it over the next week or so. It's off the high, but the trend is still going. S&P, that looks like it's going to break up again. You see the way it's compressed against that high. The market's generally looking for a pullback, and this is why it just keeps going. The Russell 2000 has been accelerating higher. I noticed the other day that's kind of woken up a bit, which is very interesting. And I think that's because interest rates look like they're going to drop. So if we have a look at the short-term interest rate market, you'll see that, let's go, where's it gone? Is it down here? No, I've gone past it. Sorry, I've just whizzed past it. Here we are. 3-month government bond rates. Look at that. It's on the low, heading towards 4%. I know there's news about Trump firing one of the Fed governors and all that sort of stuff going on, the politics, but it looks more and more like there's going to be a rate cut. These yields are pressing downwards, apart from the 10-year, of course, because further out there will be this expectation of inflation coming into the system. But short term, yeah, rates going down. I think if anyone says that there's going to be 2 cuts in rates, I doubt that. I don't think that will happen unless somehow Trump gets kind of political control of the Fed, and then bloody hell, it will all kick off. Perhaps that, you never know. Sometimes events fit the way the market should work, and that might be something that happens. But anyway, either way, it looks like US rates are going to go down. All central banks have been cutting rates. Lo and behold, risk on assets are going higher. Now in China, where they obviously do things their own way, that's been accelerating up. Bit of profit taking around 15,000 in the Chinese stock market. But you have to remember, everyone's bearish on China. They all hate the market, and it's just been going up and up. Hong Kong, a bit of a correction short term, but that is still heading higher. Trend is up. So looking around, it's a risk on market. You've got precious metals going up. You've got silver, gold. Silver looks like it's going to break out. Palladium, that had a good run up. It's come back a little bit. This is, not the greatest retracement. It should have really held in, acting like some of these altcoins, where they break out and just come back again. I doubt anyone else is looking at Palladium apart from me, but I'm expecting it to hold in here. And if it doesn't, then I'll have to just wait for it to turn around and go back up again. But other than that, broadly speaking, precious metals, base metals are performing very well. Aluminium, I noticed, is also getting ready to break out potentially. But the chart of copper hasn't recovered, and I think it wants to see one more down leg before it then goes back up. So that's the only weird thing that's a bit of an outlier. That was really strong. Copper should be much higher, and perhaps there's a bit of a knee jerk in the system there. If it keeps inflation low because copper's used in so many things, then so be it. but I don't think it will stay down here, until the end of the year. If it goes downwards, I think it will go back up again because, copper is so much in demand, or will be globally. So as far as the macro scene goes, everything's still looking positive. Now, Bitcoin, it's had a bit of a correction, maybe this double top that we were looking at. It's triggered here, but it looks very lethargic in the way it's broken down. It could accelerate a bit more. That's possible. But the overall trend is still bullish. And I know most people probably aren't looking at Bitcoin. They're looking at other things. But even if it does correct a bit further, we've still come a long way from the start of the bull market, which was all the way down here. And that's when we started discussing the upward trend, and various breakout points along the way. It's never a straight line. There's always corrections, but the overall trend is still bullish. And if we go towards the sentiment indication, 47 is neutral. It's not overly bullish. It's not overly bearish. It's in the middle, which is kind of what you'd expect. So if it was extremely bullish, then I think I'd have a bit of a problem. But it eased back the markets. And again, as we've kind of discussed amongst ourselves, there isn't many people outside of the crypto space discussing what's happening with crypto, and there doesn't seem to be very much interest apart from the odd headline here and there. So let's have a look. So Bitcoin and ETH is the next one. Let me just show you the spread chart. So this is ETH versus Bitcoin. So this goes up when ETH is stronger than Bitcoin. We got the first breakout point here when it just jumped and was ending this trend. Then it consolidated and made a base. That was the second breakout point. Third point we were looking at was a pullback from here, maybe for it to come back down and go up again, because it looked like it was maybe making an even bigger base, but it just went straight through. So, the bias was towards ETH anyway, and the spread is just kind of broken out a little sooner than expected. It may well pull back because that is quite a run. And there might be either Bitcoin running or, ETH coming off a little bit. But the chart of ETH itself does not look bearish to me. You've heard me say many times that I think this is going to take this high out, and look at the weekly chart. This is to me was a triangular constriction. It was waiting to break this level here in order to get to the high, in order to break higher. So this is the pattern that I think some of the altcoins are going to take. I think they're going to, if you look at this whole period, this kind of long drawn out range, which has been very frustrating, it could end quite quickly with a very sharp breakout, and then it moves through a trend that then's actually quite hard to get on board, because there aren't many people who buy into these highs or even buy into the pullbacks. And sometimes these get a bit overbought, of course, but it depends on your time frame as to what you're looking for when trading. Like some people are day to day, some people are month to month or year to year. So longer term, even if there is a pullback, this is still pressing the upside and playing catch up. So it wouldn't surprise me to see this in this sort of area as we're getting towards year end and possibly even higher. So it's looking exciting, and it's looking interesting. And I think there's, we're going to see more of that as we go into 2026.
Yes. Chris Ashby asks, so Paul, even with sentiment being bad, 47 on the fear and greed index, does that mean most likely Bitcoin won't retrace in a major way?
Yeah, because sentiment, what you're looking at with sentiment is you're looking at extremes. And when the market is up, and so if we were looking at this area here, say, and if sentiment was extremely bullish at that point, that would be dangerous. So as long as sentiment is not extremely bullish, we're trying to work out whether the market is saturated. And there's a few ways of doing it. There's certain indicators, like your friend who's always late into the trend, who never asks about Bitcoin, and then suddenly out of the blues asking how to buy, or not Bitcoin or anything. There's that sign. There's the taxi driver sign, but there's the actual sentiment sign that's saying it's sort of pegged into the red, and the market can still go up in that environment, but it's just a question of how long it will continue to go up for. And usually in the last phase, it's pegged into the red. The market is really, really hot. Everyone's talking about it, and that's the warning sign. And it stays there even when the market goes sideways and then starts to fall. That's when it's dangerous. When you're seeing sentiment fighting the direction of the trend. And if we go back to Bitcoin, you probably would have seen the opposite down here. You would have seen that sentiment was really, really negative, no matter what the market did. Even if it went sideways or consolidated, it was still really negative. And that's telling you it's the first step to the reversal. It's not like, okay, it's negative, therefore you buy, because sometimes it can be negative. It's got to be confirmed that the market is turning around, and it will stay negative for a long time. I mean, I can't remember what it was showing around here, but I know if you go back to that period, that was a Sam Bankman-Fried area, and everyone was saying 6,000 for Bitcoin, and they were saying how that was the end, So it takes a long time to shift that sentiment around, and that's what that sentiment indicator is showing you.
Speaking of taking a long time to turn some sentiment around, let's take a look at OMI's token.
Yeah, funnily enough, I was actually going to mention that as an example of how it takes a while to change opinion. And even when you do change opinion, or even when the price action does start to move, it will, people will still be negative on it. So finally, here we go. We got the breakout. Now I was still negative on this. I was still like saying that we needed to break at least one of these lines, but there was signs of an upward trend, as we talked about at this point, this line in here. And this is again why you have to look at the markets all the time, because you shut your eyes and now what do? It's all the way up here. Other people have bought down here, or they don't want to buy, or they've had enough of it, but it's now on the move. Now it still needs to do a bit more in order to confirm it, because it's done this before, like here, and then consolidated and come all the way back down again. But it feels like there's more support in the altcoin space generally, if that makes sense. The ETH move, which seems to be a translation into other altcoins. So this went from sort of negative to, interesting to now very, very much like we need to watch this. I think any pullback will be an opportunity to buy, and we know where we put our stops down here. So ideally, this would have been the breakout point, but it might have just happened too fast to get in. And again, it depends on your strategy, or what your strategy is with any particular market. Like when you have a resistance point like this, you can either buy just before for a breakout, or wait for the breakout and then get on board. But that's down to the individual. But price action wise, this is now showing the sort of impulse move that suggests that we are, dare I say it, at the end of the trend. I mean, we've broken a major downward trend line. It's come all the way back to, look at this. This was the floor that was it was testing for so long. So naturally, it's got to stop there, isn't it? Because there's a lot of people who are long from here who would just go, right, I'm out. I want to get flat, and then we'll see it consolidate here, and then the next step will be getting through there for a move higher. But its dynamics have definitely changed, and it's looking a lot more positive, of course. But how you trade it is another matter. But it's playing off some really interesting technical levels. So it's great to see that even this is turning around. And I think, as I say, that's indicative of the broader kind of potential bullishness for the altcoin season.
Dan says, shout out to Paul for taking time for a private chat with the Gold Rainmaker group last week. Thank you for that, Paul.
That's a pleasure. Good to chat to you guys.
That was fun. Quinn asked the question, how do you account for measuring sentiment if AI trading bots are trading on predefined parameter? Do you distinguish?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Will AI change the market? we've had kind of program trading or computer trading since computers have existed, and since anyone's been able to sort of fix their computer to a trading order book. So it kind of goes back a long way. The bottom line is, now I've given this a lot of thought, because there's some people who say that it's very soon going to be the end of the market and it's just going to be all AI bots. I don't think it's going to be like that, because the AI is trained on the most recent data, or it's trained on a lot of data. But the thing about the markets is the markets change, and whatever it learns, it might have to relearn. And it's a question of how it's been programmed or what it's been programmed with. So an AI agent isn't smart just because it's an AI agent, in as much as that you can't say a particular chef is particularly good just because he's using, just because he's a chef. It's like, or she's a chef. Is what ingredients are you using and how are you applying it, and what have you decided that's right? So either way, that you can tell where positions are in the markets, whether the market is very long, and even if that's an AI agent that's buying, there's a human behind that person, by that bot. There's someone. The AI agent is not taking the risk. Some individual or corporation is taking the risk. So that risk has to be managed, and that would be managed by a human. Even if it's sort of managed by a computer, somebody has to decide whether to scale up or scale down. So what I'm saying here is, it's a bit like the autopilot on a plane. Yeah, you can go on autopilot for a bit, but ultimately there's a human element about where it's traveling to and what instructions it's given and how much risk it's given. So I don't think it'll change the outlook completely. And whatever the reporting is still is linked to the number of positions, long and short. And that also tells you when the market is becoming skewed one way or another. But I think the best way to tell often is the headlines that we see, and chatting amongst the community here, and how many people are looking at the markets and all that sort of stuff. I think we can tell outside of it without worrying too much about the other computer stuff, because that's, to be fair, that's always been a problem or an issue with computer trading. AI is a new thing, but it is just another form of computer trading, I feel. Now, I might be wrong about that, but that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah. And what would you give OMI? Would you give it a buy, a wait, or a sell?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, look, it's a buy, isn't it? But it's I'm laughing because I'm going to say it was a buy before the breakout. You can't wait for it to do all of this before you decide it's a buy. It was a buy ahead of that. But, looking at it now, it may retrace because it's on this resistance. But, I would say if it's not a buy now, I don't know when it's going to be a buy.
Got it. Now, let me pull up something I wanted to show that was interesting on the TradingView charts. I think this is on OKX's exchange. Look at that trading volume. Even when we had these breakouts to the upside here, look at the trading volume. In fact, it's kind of hard to see. Let me move this around. There we go. Look how low this trading volume is that caused these pumps. But this trading volume has been exorbitant compared to anything it's seen in the past here. That is really interesting to me. To me, that says the bottom's probably in. Like, I think the bottom for the cycle for OMI is in, and that's not going to retrace to these prices. Now, could it retrace further back from where it's at now? It could. It could, but I think the bottom for OMI is in, and that this signals turnaround. So I would rate it a buy, but last week, remember when it was really, really cheap? That's when I was rating it a buy, and it was a better buy last week. Of course, I like buying really cheap, even when there's no apparent turnaround, and then just waiting till it does what I think it's going to do in that greater 4-year pattern. So OMI, I give it a buy. let's take a look at Flow, which is in the same space as OMI, and let's see if Flow is doing anything.
Could I just ask a quick question on OMI? Has there been some form of announcement, or what's actually caused that move?
There was something announced 10 days ago.
Okay.
What's funny is the response all of a sudden took off, but there was a big change like 10 days or so ago about the use of the token, and that the token is probably going to get a lot more usage from the community based on that announcement. But the price didn't immediately react. It reacted kind of very delayed from that.
Yeah. It's I mean, there were signs that it was consolidating. There were signs that it was lifting off the low, and I could see that there was potential for a possible breakout. But we've had that before and it's failed. So that's why, I'll always be cautious on it. I mean, you can roll the dice sometimes, but when it starts to move, you see that's the sort of sharp move that's telling you something's changed, and that happens within a day. And a day or two or whatever later, it's not too late, but it is too late for a short-term trade. It's not too late for a long-term trade. But what I'm pleased about is that it's more indicative of the altcoin space, So I think this gives a broader indication that there is this risk on is trickling down, and it's finally coming down to the more risky products. We were saying that was a potential from the ETH move, but until it happens, until we get evidence of it, it's just potential. But it's great to see a concrete move like that. So, great stuff. And hats off to you for hanging on that long as well, because it's not easy, especially against the sentiment. It's and it goes back to what we were talking about in terms of an individual's method of trading. Like, everybody's different, and it has to feel right for you. Otherwise, you're just not going to stick with it, or you're not going to believe it. But coming back to the markets in hand, because I know we haven't got as much time this week. This is interesting in itself with a technical pattern. I mean, OMI made a very small technical double bottom before it broke out. It was quite small, but it was the first indication that something was going to happen. With this, you have something fairly similar. Let me just get that line off here. But again, it still needs to break out. It's doing the consolidation, but it needs to break out through this line here to have this as a base. So the pressure has been to the downside, but this is the beginning of potentially a new upward trend. So it is base building. Base building is kind of step one, but step two is you get a sharp move that tells you the dynamics have changed. And as I say, you can buy at any point in a trend, of course, but what you're trying to do is time it so that you buy it just before the market has a sharp move. So we could buy it here and we could still be sitting with it next week and it hasn't gone anywhere and it's holding up capital. But where I wouldn't be comfortable sitting on my hands would be if it's through this area here, through like 47 cents or so, because this looks to me a bit like an inverse head and shoulders. And if it's here, then that's confirmed as a base and it might start to move, fairly quickly. So at the moment, it's a wait because it's in this pattern and it needs to resolve. If you're putting your risky hat on, or if I was putting my risky hat on and saying, well, I'll have a punt, yeah, I can buy it here. I could put a stop below 34 cents. If it goes below there, out the trade line's broken as well. Those two things will parachute me out. But if it goes through here, then it's confirming a base, and therefore we could be looking at a first target of around 64 cents. So again, that's an interesting pattern.
Yeah, that's in the same space as OMI, and I think OMI took off a little bit because of fundamental change that's going to make the token more used. And there was an interesting delay between that announcement and when the price action took off. But they're essentially tokens behind digital collectibles. So Flow is a token behind NBA Top Shots, NFL All Day, and I think those are going to do really well. I think this space and this narrative is going to do really well. Let's take a look at CRO. Well, let me real quick show what I like about Flow. One of the things I really like about Flow is that it's buyable right here on Coinbase. Now, recently, OMI is buyable on Coinbase too, not in the same way, in that Flow is directly on Coinbase. And so you can buy it on Coinbase and hold it in it on Coinbase. Its market cap quite a bit higher than OMI, but it's a pretty easy one to have exposure to the digital collectible space for people who aren't really crypto people, and they just want to have a Coinbase account, but they don't want to worry about custody of their own wallet. Flow is easy. OMI is getting easier and easier for non-crypto people to buy, and it's not directly on Coinbase yet, though you can buy it through Coinbase. When it gets available on Coinbase directly and you can just easily hold it on your Coinbase account, I think that will increase OMI's people buying OMI. And for many people coming in, I think OMI will be some of their first purchases in the crypto space as the bull run gets in full gear. And it's not yet. And we're seeing that, like if you look at Flow's price, this is this nice rounding bottom, and we're probably right near the bottom this pattern, and that it's set to probably turn around. Flow is an amazing deal at this price, 39 cents. I would give it a buy. I don't usually like things with such low market or high market caps, where it's at 6.25 million. But I look at things and I say, where could this go in the bull run? And I think this could go to $4. I think it could possibly go to $40. And that is 10 to 100x returns, which outperforms something that non-crypto people can hold over the coming 6 months. And I think it's possible that it hits those numbers in the coming 6 months. So I look forward to seeing what Flow will do. But if I were new coming into the crypto space, I really didn't know anything about self-custody wallets, and I just was new and didn't know how to manage all that, but I knew enough about the different tokens. Flow would be one of the things that I'd be purchasing, Flow and XRP. All right. Yeah, both those you can hold directly on Coinbase. I like that about them. Let's take a look at CRO, which has done some interesting things.
Yeah, by interesting, it's kind of exploded higher as well. So perhaps the start of a longer bullish phase, we would hope, but certainly doing all the right things. I mean, that's the highest level since April 22 or thereabouts. So broken its prior high. These were the two main resistance points. You see it pulled back a little bit from the first one, just went through the second one like it didn't exist. So, you know, that's a really good sign. That was a top over here. So I'm just looking at the relative resistance points. We've got this resistance point here, but really the feature of this chart is the pace of this move and what it's saying about the market. It's saying, look, you know, things are undervalued and the market is looking around for those opportunities. So in itself, it might not be something you'd want to chase if it was at a different point in the move, but here, because it's at the beginning of something, or it's been basing for so long, you know, whilst it could pull back in the short term, I don't know what else it needs to do other than, of course, take out this resistance to work its way all the way up to here, to its, you know, previous high. So it's doing all the right things technically, and it's in the right phase of the bullish cycle for this to go higher. And unless there's something, you know, with the project that's changed from a fundamental point of view, and obviously I don't look at that, you guys look at that stuff, you know, this should continue higher. So technically, yeah, it may be just a little bit overdone up here from a short-term perspective, but I'm looking for a change of dynamics to tell me that things are on the move. And it's this sort of move that tells me that. The base was triggered down here at 11 cents. There will be some profit taking from people who've just bought it at that point. but overall the bases have been rising, and whilst it's been working in this range, the overall kind of direction has been gradual to the upside. Seems now it's woken up a bit more and wants to accelerate, which is a good sign. Now I'm going to switch to a weekly chart just to see if there's anything. It doesn't look like there's anything from a longer term perspective on this particular one, and there may be a longer term chart to look for. But yeah, I mean that's great. I mean, picking them before they've done something like this is obviously more ideal because we are chasing it a little bit. But I don't mind chasing something if there's good upside potential. And I would say some charts look nicer than others, and this is an okay looking chart. It's not the best and it's not the worst. So I would say that for me, this is a buy.
All right. Just some of the comments coming in here. Paul saying buy OMI should be an NFT. That's Paul.
That's great.
Yes, Paul saying OMI a buy. That's special. It was cool to see Paul say buy for OMI. Side note: Paul took my strike profit. Paul, I took my strike profits and rolled into OMI at 0.0018.
Wow,
it's a great feeling right now.
Well done.
Yeah, that worked out awesome. Yeah, Big A is referring to really what drove this, which is CRO partnered with Trump's DJT company and will establish a treasury company holding CRO. This move was news fueled with huge partnerships. Yeah. And we see that here, right here. If you go to CoinMarketCap and you scroll down, you see Kronos price rocket says Trump Media, Crypto.com back $6.4 billion CRO treasury merger. Now it's Crypto.com. CRO is Crypto.com's token. Now, interestingly enough, they've had Crypto.com's token out for a long time, but I think they redid the token or something. This vesting doesn't make sense because CRO has been out for years and years. And then it shows it just barely start vesting like this. And I'm like, I don't understand that. I think there was something weird that they did with their token, almost like they issued new ones or something. I'm trying to remember what was weird about what they did with their token. I mean, look how long their token's been out. It's got history all the way back to 2018. And so this kind of vesting schedule doesn't make sense at all. All right. As far as price, it's an exchange token, and when exchanges do well, their tokens tend to do well. And Crypto.com is, I think, going to be a bigger exchange in the future. Do I buy this or this? No, it just had its news. It just ran. I don't chase green candles, so it went from 7.5 cents to 26 cents. So it just went 3.5x. Cool. That tells me I missed it, and I'm not going to chase into it. It is interesting to see some of this stuff start to run. I think what happens when the bull market really starts kicking in gear is almost like when you throw popcorn in the microwave and it's going for a little while and nothing is happening. And then you hear pop, 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 and then just occasional pops. And then things really heat up and start popping like crazy. And we're not to the popping like crazy yet. We're just occasionally seeing a little bit of pops. And these aren't even really big pops. I mean, OMI's token went up and essentially doubled in price, went up 100%. CRO from back in July, essentially, so over a month, has gone up almost 4x, which is a pretty big move. So 3.5x. But some of these moves will go up, 4 to 10x in a week when the market really kicks in gear. And we're not seeing that yet. So it's not full-on bull run yet.
Something interesting in terms of sentiment that I'd like to mention is this company in the UK that is is a trading company, something called spread betting, and they're sort of moving heavily into crypto which I think is an interesting sign. Obviously, they're seeing more and more speculation, and it's becoming more established. I mean, you've been able to spread bet certain crypto currencies anyway, and they've got like an index to do it. But I think their new offering may be that allowing you to trade directly, which is different. In the UK, we have something here which allows you to effectively bet on prices. So it's a bit like betting on horses, but it's betting on the prices of markets, and so that's called spread betting, which I don't think you have outside of the UK. You might have heard of something called contracts for differences, which is something similar. But this is a step closer to allowing actual trading of crypto directly, and this is the sort of thing one would expect to see in this stage as crypto becomes more established, and as you were saying about how more people can gain access to the market and more people can speculate. So it's that sort of thing that should drive this next phase, and it's interesting to see the companies are, looking to get into what they perceive to be the action.
Yeah. All right. Dr. Boyd Joy was clearly here for CRO as potential $6.5 billion of dry powder.
Yeah, that's interesting on CRO that there is. You're absolutely right. You have to be careful if that's why I asked about OMI in the announcement, and if there is a sudden announcement that's come out of the blue, yeah, I think you got to be a bit more cautious about why it's moved there, and because again, it comes down to this saturation thing. You don't want everybody to be long. But having said that, once the dust has settled, the chart still looks good. It's not like it was going straight down and then it's sort of just jumped up on some news and then it sort of tails off again. It has been forming some form of technical base. So we shall see, but it's the right environment for it to do well. So maybe there'll be some people who knew that news before and they're selling into it, and we're going to see, where they decide to take their profits, and then it will settle down into whether it will be a longer term trade, and that's whether it can hold some good support points. And it's something that you need to manage over the coming weeks, so we can come back to that and have a look. But broadly speaking, again, I think it's just indicative of what's happening in the space.
I think exchange tokens like CRO, already it's a quite high market cap of almost 9 billion. And something like this can go to $100 billion market cap. I think in the craziness, like that seems unrealistic. They could go to 100 billion market cap, but market caps, a lot of times market caps go to prices they shouldn't really hit, and yet they do. And I think in the coming bull run, I wouldn't be surprised if CRO goes to $100 billion market cap, maybe even a little bit higher. And so for many people, they'd be excited. Like clearly, Dr. Boyjoy is really excited about CRO and, really big believer in this. But when I look at it, it's like, okay, so say it goes to $100 billion market cap. That's like an 11x from here. That's not very high compared to some of the other things in their potential. And maybe it goes to $150 billion market cap, which is quite high. That's still like 15x from here. Whereas other things I'm looking at that are still cheap and haven't run yet might do a 40x or a 50x or a 60x. So it's like if you look at what this announcement says, like, they launch a $6.4 billion CRO treasury bet. Like, okay, so what does that really mean? And it's like, so Boyjoy says, they have potentially $6.5 billion of dry powder. Okay, so how does that make the token go crazy from here? Like, that's something that the community gets really excited about, and it puts CRO in the news and people buy it. But I mean, let's see. The structure gives the venture a headline value of $6.42 billion. Once the merger closes, Yorkville Class A shares will trade on NASDAQ under the ticker MCGA. Yorkville said the change of symbol would be filed before the deal is finalized. So it looks like Trump Media and Crypto.com have agreed to hold their stakes for a year, followed by a staged release over 3 years. So I think this puts them in the news, but how does this lead to really news that the token goes absolutely crazy from here? Potentially, it gives them Crypto.com an additional partner that has a stake in building connections for them, and it secures their future for being a bigger crypto exchange than it otherwise would have been. And that's positive for the token. But from here, where can the token go? Well, $150 billion market cap, maybe. And here was the article. If it goes to $150 billion market cap, that's still only like a 16 or 17x from where it's at after this big price increase. Now, before it went 3.5x, 16x increase from that price would be more like a 50x increase, which that's a really big difference right there. So cool. Boyjoy didn't like that. He said, LOL, noob boomers talking about tokens they don't know. See ya. Well, we'll see you, Boyjoy. Probably never see you again, and that's okay. I was in CRO before they had Cronus chain sold last run for nice gains. Wes asks, why would anyone buy Flow when they could buy OMI? Being serious. Well, some people don't even know how to buy OMI, and some people are NFL fans or NBA fans, and they find the token associated with it. And some people are just coming in and they're looking on Coinbase and they're buying tokens that are just easily on Coinbase. Bill Gardner said, I only held CRO because I was earning 3% back in crypto with their card. I'll wait till around 90-ish cents to sell and then put into Definity. Bill Gardner. Well, Paul, anything else you want to look at before you got to run?
Yeah, I reckon, some interesting moves maybe in Solana and some of the other sort of bigger alts could be on the cards, which is again a good sign. But no, I mean, just we'll look at the picks again next week, and sorry that it's a shorter one. And yeah, well done to the OMI holders, and yeah, long may it continue.
Yeah, it's going to be an amazing, 4 months left we have in this year? Actually, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we got roughly 4 months left, and let's see what happens this year. I think still some action continues well into next year, but I think it really kicks off this year. I think it happens in the coming 4 months. That's what I'm seeing in the charts. So looking forward to it.
Great. Thanks, guys. All the very best. See you next week.
All right. We'll see you, Paul.
Thank you.
Woo. Yes, it's fun to see a little bit of action in OMI. Will it sustain? Possibly. I do think the bottom is in, but we'll see. It's really a bigger gamble in the short term of what is OMI going to do than the long term. As the momentum comes into crypto, like it has every 4 years, usually those projects with solid fundamentals do get some massive exposure as people FOMO into them and their prices really run. And that's what I'm betting on. So whether OMI goes absolutely crazy in the short term or it takes months for that to play out, I'm okay to wait and be patient. One of the reasons I love OMI is I love the fundamentals behind it. I love the fundamentals behind Flow that we showed too as well. But my money is in OMI. Now, my wife holds a bunch of Flow. And the reason is because she could just easily buy it on Coinbase, and that was simple. So she owns Flow and XRP, just things that she could easily get on an exchange and not have to worry about self-custody. A whale keeps dumping his Definity bag. Well, thank you to that whale for bringing the price down. Can we look at Definity? Well, we can, because Paul's no longer here. All right. So it looks like what's funny about this pattern, let me share this tab. What's funny about this pattern is that I think this is the bottom of the trend line and the low is already in. It's just mostly trading sideways, and it's not showing signs that it's ready to run yet. But I do think the low in this pattern is in. And yeah, still, like, they don't show the market cap really good here. Let me try CoinGecko. There we go. Market cap on Definity is $4 million market cap. Fully diluted valuation isn't much higher than that. This is the kind of project that I love. Definity, most people don't know much about Definity. They haven't followed it all. It's got good cash flows. It's got an interesting business in that they bring crypto trading to some hedge funds, institutions, where they can hold their assets in a bank and trade against those assets rather than having to send their funds over to an exchange itself. They're making amazing revenues doing that. It's just most of crypto space is completely unaware of them, and that's the only reason I feel the market cap is so low. But generally, when the market starts running, then a lot of people dig into researcher mode of what is cheap that hasn't run yet, that's got strong fundamentals. And that's the type of market where Definity really gets discovered and it goes absolutely crazy. So that's what I'm looking for. I agree, Bill. I agree. I think Definity will do well. Sorry, Wes, I want to load up more on Fartcoin. Oh, man, I just can't do the memes. Well, we're probably just months away from some massive growth, and a lot of your patience, if that happens, will have paid off. Now, a lot of people, they want to get rich in their lives, and they're like, oh, yeah, that would be nice. I wish I had bought Bitcoin back in 2012. But back then, in 2012, Bitcoin was a big risk, and you really could only see the potential for it if you really got into the research. And then you put your money on the table and you played the risk, and then you waited to let it happen. Well, now Bitcoin's not anywhere near such a risk. And so the potential upside from what it did from 2012 till now, it doesn't have that kind of upside. Now, Bitcoin can still do well. I was talking with Dr. Stuff the other day, and Bitcoin is an amazing bet to possibly 10x your money over the next 10 years from here, right? So it's a great way to turn 10 million into 100 million. But it's not a great way to take 10,000 and turn it into 100 million, like a million even. And so the opportunity's been missed there. Where I think the opportunity is some of the smaller altcoins that have a business that makes sense. Like, why does blockchain and cryptographical encryption make sense for what they're doing? Why does that make sense for Web 3.0? What is it that their business does that's going to make it relevant 10 or 20 years from now? And those are the kind of businesses I'm looking for to invest in that are really low market caps. Like Definity's market cap is nice and juicy and low. So in a coming bull run, it's got potential upside that it might do 40x or 50x or 100x or hopefully even more than that in that bull run for massive gains, because 100x will take your $10,000 and turn it into $1 million. And that starts to be life-changing, right? Any other comments here? Easy 10,000x for bump. Well, at where bump's market price is, if they survive, it could see those kind of gains. That would be crazy, but their market cap is punishingly low. Bill Gardner says, I'm ready for that. Well, I know many of you joined our stream last night for OMI is My Homie show, and you were excited to see OMI's price today. It's fun seeing some of that happen. Boy, we haven't seen anything yet. When this popcorn really starts popping, we're going to see some crazy moves. Thanks so much, guys. Enjoy the wrap. We'll see you all soon.
Came into the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit bad before you could. Was taught to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. Principles are simple, to leave in a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this wrong, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. They go with the hate, they the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.